This right next to me is the updated 2025 Toyota Camry, and although it's not an all-new model, it has been heavily revised with new styling, upgraded tech and a recalibrated powertrain, and it's offered in a hybrid only in Australia, and therefore it is a bit more expensive in comparison to before. So in this full detailed review, I'm going to cover everything you need to know. So before we start, please give this video a like, share, subscribe, and let's get straight into the review. In Australia, the Camry is priced between $39,990 climbing up to just under $54,000 before on-road costs. And like I mentioned, the Camry is only available in a hybrid, and this one I'm featuring is the fleet-friendly version, the Ascent. And in regards to options, there are 8 external colours to pick from. White is a no-cost option, and the other colours will set you back an additional fee. Now, if we move on to key rivals, this would be the type of vehicle that competes with the Honda Accord e-HEV, which is priced from $64,000. Or otherwise, if you could go for a petrol-powered only alternative, you could probably look at a Hyundai Sonata, which is priced from $60,000. Let's now move on to the design. So the colour of this car is finished off in satin blue, and in comparison to the previous Camry, this newest version features what Toyota refers as the hammerhead front end. And in regards to some of the key features, we've got full automatic LED headlights along with automatic LED DRLs, but it is worth noting that these aren't the higher grade LEDs like what is featured on the Ascent Sport and the SL. And if we look lower down, additional black plastic and some air vents along the side. And now moving towards the side view of the Camry. So both the Ascent and the Ascent Sport sit on multi-spoke 17-inch alloy wheels that are wrapped in Yokohama tyres, and in addition to other key features, automatic folding mirrors, which could be useful around the city. But it is worth noting that you don't get privacy glass, as that is only equipped on the top spec SL grade. And now moving towards a redesign of the updated Camry. So this is what the previous version used to look like, and this is the new one. So as you can see, the rear combination lights now feature partial LED lighting, which means you still get incandescent globes for the indicators. And if we look lower down, additional black plastic trim, which is now featured across the range, whereas before the higher spec Camrys looked a bit more sportier, especially with the quad exhaust tips. But overall, I do like the subtle design of the Camry, but let me know what you think in the comments down below, as styling is subjective. Okay, moving on to the cabin. So before you climb inside, the Camry features a remote key, keyless entry and push button start for the ignition. Now, in terms of the overall presentation of the cabin, this is what the previous Camry used to look like inside, and this is the current one. So as you can see, it has been heavily revised, and if I run you through some of the touch points on the top surface, that is nice and soft, even on top of the doors as well. And I do like some of the details like the air conditioning vents and even this cloth material which wraps around the center console, but I'm not so sure about the gloss black around the center and even towards the center console as well. And this of course being the base model Ascent, you get a plastic polyurethane steering wheel and this rubbery material along the center console, and that also extends onto the doors as well. But when you do look lower down, it does start to get a bit durable on some of the lower sections. And if we move on to some of the comfort features, all model variants receive dual zone climate control, and you also get these cloth seats which are a lot nicer in comparison to the previous Camry, and they can also be manually operated. And finally, the steering wheel offers both manual tilt and reach adjustment. Now if we move on to infotainment, it all runs off this 8-inch touchscreen, and running you through the key features, you can cycle through different menus with these tabs on the right hand side. And going into media, we've got AM, FM, DAB, digital radio, along with Bluetooth, USB and Miracast phone mirroring, and of course paired to a 6-speaker sound system. And in addition to that, we've also got inbuilt satellite navigation with 3D mapping, and that is what that looks like on the screen, and as well as voice recognition. And in regards to smartphone mirroring, the Camry has both wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. And if I go into the next menu, you have a dedicated energy flow meter, so you can see what is going on within the hybrid system. And it's also worth noting that this car comes equipped with Toyota Connected Services, so you have an SOS button up the top here to call for help. And you've also got the ability to connect this car to your smartphone to access remote door locking and unlocking, remote engine start, and as well as enabling other fun features. And if I flick the car into reverse, this generation Camry has received an updated surround view camera with both front and rear parking sensors and a rear cross traffic alert. And in addition to other key features, up the top here, the Camry has autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. And if we look towards the right hand side, blind spot monitoring on the wing mirrors, as well as safe exit assist, which alerts you if an oncoming car is coming your way, so you don't rip off the door. And they've also modified the adaptive cruise control, which not only engages better and keeps you within distance between yourself and the vehicle in front, and additionally a lane keeping assistant with the ability for this car to steer itself within its lane. And ahead of the driver is a driver fatigue monitoring system. And finally, looking within the cluster, speed sign recognition, which adopts with the adaptive cruise control. Now moving on to the driver's display, you do have a fairly configurable setup looking at fuel consumption, navigation, media functions, driver assistance. And moving on to some of the drive modes, we've got Eco, Normal and Sport. And looking down here, we've got an electronic parking brake. And this button here is to switch on full electric. And this button here is a hold function that keeps the car still when you're at a set of traffic lights. And finally, storage. So up the top here, we've got a sunglasses holder. And looking towards the glove box, that is pretty decent and fits all of the owner's literature as well. And looking towards the center console, decent center storage, and there is also a 12-volt socket, and as well as 3 USB-C charging ports down in the center. This section here is open for a mobile phone, which normally is the section for a wireless phone charging pad. And over towards the center, decent sized cup holders for small bottles of water. And looking lower down on the doors, decent door bin storage that could also fit a small bottle of water. Okay, let's move on to the back seat. So as you can see, this front row seat is set in my driving position, and from what we can see, I've got good knee room, toe room and headroom as well. So anyone over 6 foot tall should be okay back here. And as you can see in the middle seat, again, plenty of knee room, toe room and headroom. And in regards to other key features, towards the center, directional air vents, along with 2 USB-C charging ports, and behind the front row seats, map pockets and decent door bin storage that could also fit a bottle of water. And along here, the grab handles extend towards the back, and over on the top here, a halogen light. And if we look towards the center, there is a flip down armrest with 2 small cup holders. And finally, for parents, these 2 outboard seats are ISOFIX compatible. And right behind me, there are 3 top tether points, but it is worth noting that the headrests are fixed into place on the Ascent, so just something worth pointing out to parents. Okay, let's now move on to the boot. So a couple of ways to do this. You can use the button inside the cabin, or simply use the key fob, or you can use the button offset to the right hand side, and once that is open, it reveals 524 litres of capacity, which makes it large enough for a couple of carry-on suitcases. But like all cars in the segment, you do have a load lip, but there are some clever capacity spots on each side of the boot floor, along with some shopping bag hooks on each side as well. And if you need to carry something longer, by pulling on these tabs, that of course unlocks the rear seats so you can fold them down into a 60-40 split. And if I look underneath the floor, that reveals a section for the toolkit, and looking under that is a space saver spare wheel, which is equipped on all versions of the Camry. Let's now move on to the powertrain. So under the bonnet features a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine like what was featured in the previous Camry. However, this has been equipped with Toyota's new 5th generation hybrid electric system, driving the front wheels through an eCVT transmission. And in terms of the hybrid powertrain setup, you still get a lithium-ion battery pack underneath the rear seat, and as well as 2 electric motors, one to restart the engine and one for regeneration, and a combined figure of 170 kilowatts and 221 newton meters of torque. And finally, Toyota Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and each service is every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres. And if you do keep up to date with your logbook history, Toyota will then give you in total a 7-year powertrain warranty, and as well as up to 10 years for the hybrid battery system. But it is worth keeping in mind that roadside assistance is not included, as that will set you back $120 per year. Okay, moving on to the driving impressions. So at the front, I've got great visibility, but it is worth pointing out, due to the extended length, there is a small overhang at the front, so that is just worth pointing out going over driveways. And if we move on to side vision, decent sized windows and decent sized teardrop wing mirrors. And finally, at the rear, relatively decent vision, but it is hard to see out of that C-pillar. However, the A-pillars are nice and thin, so overall for the category, the Camry is relatively good. So, how does the Camry perform at lower speeds? Well, first impressions, the acceleration is nice and smooth, combined with the hybrid system, and it kicks in when you need it to, so it is pretty responsive, I guess, in most situations. This also has a turning circle radius of around 12 meters, so driving around the city, if you were to use this as an Uber, it's very easy to drive and maneuver in tight situations. And in terms of the noteworthy changes with this newest Camry, the ride comfort is a little bit softer in comparison to before. You won't notice it, I guess, going on your first test drive, but previous Camry owners will notice the difference. And even the brake pedal feel, it used to be very responsive, but it's nice and soft. It's not spongy, it's a lot more refined, and that might be useful if you do use this for Uber so you don't make your back passengers sick. So most of the time driving around the city, you'll be driving in electric mode, so the cabin will be nice and quiet, and yes, it will feel like an electric car. But as soon as you put your foot down on the accelerator pedal, the petrol engine kicks in and gives you that added performance. And if we move on to fuel consumption, Toyota claims that this Camry can achieve 4 litres per 100. And in terms of what I've achieved, the figure has dropped below 5 litres per 100 and just over 5 litres on the freeway because the engine is working a little bit harder, but overall this is one of the most efficient petrol hybrids I've ever come across. But in comparison to previous hybrid systems from Toyota, you obviously notice a difference when the engine kicks in, but you don't feel a big lurch. So refinement wise, it is a big improvement compared to previous hybrid systems from Toyota. And if we talk about driver assistance, they have improved and recalibrated the adaptive cruise control, so not only it engages, not disengages like before, this also has the ability to move forwards and even stop itself in traffic jams, which is a very useful feature. So we're going to try launching it in sports mode. So brake pedal, dial up the revs, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100. So yeah, that is very quick for a 2.5 four-cylinder. So my final verdict on the updated 2025 Toyota Camry. Well, in comparison to the previous version, like I mentioned, it isn't an all-new model, just a heavily revised version, and I think compared with many of its main rivals, the Camry is one of the best saloons you can buy on the market today. And in terms of the model grade I would pick, the SL is probably the most desirable, but I think the sweet spot within the Camry range has to be the Ascent Sport because it comes with all of the equipment that you need. But of course, let me know what you think of my verdict down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications every time I upload a new car review. But for now, I will see you in the next film. Thanks for watching.